Random thoughts. This is another random thoughts video, and in this video, reacting to yet another comment, and this time this is a comment that was made in the comment section of the video I did about the different nationalities that got involved in what was called the Dervish Wars. And that video, I say that the simplistic look at the war, one comes to the conclusion that the war was between the British and the Somalis. But then a detailed look gives you the detailed understanding that actually the war was more complex than that. On one side were, of course, the British, but also a huge section of the Somalis were in that side. And of course, the other side was Mohammed Abdullah Hassan and also another huge section of the Somalis. Of course, the British also had Indians, Pakistanis, King African rivals, which was like a branch of the military that was composed of Africans mostly. And these people came from all over the place. From what we know today as Kenya, it wasn't Kenya then, it was East Africa Protectorate. From Uganda, from all the way from Western Africa. It was a unit that had people from all over the place, from Africa, of course. And of course, there was Ethiopia or Abyssinia then, which I did not mention, but is a major, major player in that conflict. Now, somebody told me by me acknowledging that there were Somalis who were on the side of the British, I was kind of like understanding how complex that war was. And I need to clarify that I did know that there was a huge section of the Somalis who were on the side of the British. And it did not start with, of course, the Dervish Wars, even way before that. Even during the times of Richard Burton coming to Berbera, there were Somalis who were on the east side. It's not a hidden secret. There have always been people on the land who sided with, say, the British or sided with other people. And this is not just a Somali thing. It's same thing everywhere. And in fact, I did give an example of what happened during the Greco-Persian War. The simplistic view is that it was a war between the Persians and the Greeks. But then you come to realize when you read, especially when you read Herodotus' book histories, that actually there were a huge section, or there was a huge section of the Greeks who fought on the side of the Persians. It's how these things happen. Same thing in Africa, even during Mau Mau wars in Kenya. You will be surprised that a huge section of the army that was fighting the Mau Mau was actually composed of locals, including people from what we know today as Mount Kenya. They formed part of that force. It's how these things happen, so it's not unique to Somalia or Somaliland. Now, the thing I wanted to point out is how, and this came from how this comment was framed. It was framed, although it did not say it outright, it was framed to imply that the different clans of the Somalis have always had issues with one another, which I think is true. But then I think the person who wrote the comment is under the assumption that those differences are local differences, are their own differences, and they had nothing to do with the British. That those were their own local issues that, of course, were magnified with the British coming in. And so maybe the thinking of some of the people was like, and I'm not talking about this particular person who left the comment, and I'm not saying his way of seeing things is wrong. I'm just pointing out what I'm seeing. During that time, and maybe even today, there were those who thought that, okay, the British have come and they are just going to, maybe we join them so that we fight the people who have been our enemies or who are our enemies. Now, the problem I have is the thinking that the British had nothing to do with the differences between the people. Maybe they did not start it. There people always have disagreements. Brothers have disagreements. Happens all the time. But to assume that the colonial powers did not incite those differences, I don't think it is looking at things in the bigger picture. The colonial powers had every reason to stoke differences, to stoke conflicts between different groups of Africans. Now, I did a few videos about declassified documents from the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, specifically about East Africa, but also even Nigeria during the crises that have happened in Nigeria. Now, in all these documents, most of which are diplomatic documents, there is a trend that I saw, and I actually did a video about this trend, and is the persistent and consistent and um, so clear fascination with the different groups of Africans, such that if a document is written, there is this mention of, oh, the president comes from this tribe, and the vice president comes from this tribe, and the president's tribe has these feelings towards this tribe, and this tribe feels this way about this tribe. That's so common in those documents. And I read so many of such kind of description about tribes and ethnicities in different countries. And at some point I was wondering, why would a diplomat, an American diplomat, or maybe a European, but mostly it was American diplomats, and I guess the same thing with Europeans, why would such diplomats be so interested about the feelings of different ethnic groups in a nation, like Kenya, for example? Why was it so important for them? For example, so most of these documents were like maybe a junior officer informing a senior officer in the US about things on the ground. And then they will create that picture for them that this tribe, the tribe of the president, has these feelings towards this tribe, and this tribe feels like they've been put out of government, those ethnic relationship. Meanwhile, when you look at those countries during this time, many of them were making attempts to build nations that to go beyond the ethnic composition of the people because it was important. But then these diplomats were so much focused, and it's not just mentioning as by the way. It seemed like it was so important for them to make those uh, to, to pass on such kind of information. And at some point, I had a light bulb moment that actually there is a very useful reason why they are doing that, and the reason is that the different groups of Africans is very useful to the Europeans or to the Americans in this case, and I guess it was to the Europeans during colonial times, because it was a way to control. It was easier to control, it was easier to create issues, it was easier to manage people. So, for example, after independence, um, the president of a given nation would know that there is a threat from this tribe. And this tribe can so easily be supported by some forces, and they can become a little bit problematic. And so they behaved. And if they do not behave, then the feelings of a certain opposition, we can say opposition ethnic groups, can be used to remove this person from power. That's how useful that was. Now, coming back to the situation in, we can say, the larger Somalia region or the larger Somali region. Of course, it's no secret that there have been a lot of conflicts throughout the years. Even now, maybe it's became so pronounced after the fall of General Mohammed Siad Barre in 1991. And then the society was splintered into different mostly clans, of course. It's not a secret. Now, but when you read even documents that were written, generated by the Americans in the 70s and the 80s about Somalia, the Republic of Somalia, it becomes apparent that they were fascinated by those ethnic compositions or ethnic blocks, clan blocks for Somalia. And it's for a reason. It was for a reason. And I'm thinking that it was the same case before colonial times and during colonial times. The British and the Italians, of course, and the French, and maybe you can throw in there the Abyssinians, found it so useful that the Somalis could be put at loggerheads when it was necessary. And so for them, of course, the people on the ground always thought, oh, those people of that clan are not good people towards us. They've wronged us. And these people think, oh, those people are not good. There are things that those people have done that they've wronged us. Those people want to be above us. Those people want to do this to us. And for the people, they think these are organic issues that are local issues. These are our issues at home, brothers, fighting brother or having an issue with a brother. But what they don't realize is that there is a silent player here who most likely is contributing to that. And it's not for the benefit of any of these people, but for the benefit of them in terms of power grab. And I think that's what happened. So, and I'm not saying there are no local issues. As I've said, even brothers, even twins can fight over issues. But what I'm saying is there is always someone ready to take advantage of that. And if it's going to benefit them, especially to grab power, guess what they are going to do? They are going to do more than just be like, oh, I'm going to take advantage of it. They are going to do more to create even more rift. If we, for example, we talk about Somaliland, the British, of course, was so much interested in having control of that land. And so if they don't make people feel separate, different, then there is a likelihood that these people are going to merge and these people are going to form a single front and oppose them. But it's easier to tell these people, you see, those guys are not good people. Those guys want to rule over you, and you people have the right to rule. And then now these people are being told those guys want to rule over you. Of course, they are going to look at those people suspiciously. And those people maybe will be like, oh, maybe this is what we need to do. And by so doing that against the British, they do it against these other people without even realizing it. And then it becomes a self you can say a self-implementing prophecy. And then of course the conflict becomes even bigger. So yeah, so we always, if you ask me, we always have to acknowledge the possibility of the strategy of divide and rule. Those are my random thoughts.